Let's go for Mormon truth, especially for youth. Astro-Theology. What do we have? Understanding Mormon creationism. Genesis. Well, that puts us in the Mormon Truth video library on the Dodger Game channel. We're going to be studying Astro-Theology here. That's right. Mormonism. People have told you they heard you could have your own planet, that God lived on a planet or star called Kolob or near it, and we're going to get to this. We're going to head straight to the Doctrine and Covenants now. Section 130, verse 6 starts, "The angels do not reside on a planet like this earth, but they reside in the presence of God on a globe like a sea of glass and fire, where all things for their glory are manifest, past, present, and future, and are continually before the Lord. The place where God resides is a great Urim and Thummim." In other words, a crystal ball or seer stone, something you can see into to see visions, apparently. Kind of like maybe your smartphone or iPhone. "This earth is in its sanctified and immortal state will be made like unto a crystal, and will be a Urim and Thummim to the inhabitants who dwell thereon, whereby all things pertaining to an inferior kingdom, or all kingdoms of a lower order, will be manifest to those who dwell on it. And this earth will be Christ's." Okay, Christ gets his own planet, finally, after all these other creations he's done, apparently. "This earth in its sanctified and immortal state will be made like unto a crystal." Did we just read that? "And the white stone mentioned in Revelations 2:17 will become a Urim and Thummim to each individual who receives one, whereby things pertaining to a higher order of kingdoms will be made known. And a white stone is given to each of those who come into the celestial kingdom, whereon is a new name written, which no man knoweth, save he that receiveth it." The new name is the key word. Sounds like Freemasonry. Well, anyway, we each in the celestial kingdom, as it says, get our own Urim and Thummim, which is basically a white stone, it says. Maybe it means a clear stone. It says white stone, and that's basically what God lives on. Okay, great. Section 88 was given just after Christmas in 1832 to the prophet Joseph Smith. This was called the olive leaf as terms of a revelation. It says it was plucked from the tree of paradise, the Lord's message of peace to us. It says all things are controlled and governed by the light of Christ. Okay, great. Let's check that out. So, Christ has ascended up on high, and he has descended below all things, and that he comprehendeth all things, that he might be in and through all things the light of truth, which truth shineth. This is the light of Christ, as he is also in the sun, and the light of the sun, and the power thereof by which it was made. And he is also in the moon, and the light of the moon, and the power thereof by which it was made, and also the light of the stars and the power by which they were made. So Jesus Christ is actually in the moon, the sun, and the stars, it says. Contrary to anything else we've ever learned about Jesus Christ. In section 88 also we read, starting at verse 18, "Speaking of the earth, therefore it must needs be sanctified from all unrighteousness, that it may be prepared for the celestial glory. For after it hath filled the measure of its creation, it shall be crowned with glory, even with the presence of God the Father, that bodies who are of the celestial kingdom may possess it forever and ever. For this intent was it made and created, and for this intent are they sanctified." They meaning you Mormon youth. Okay? You have to abide the law of the celestial kingdom to live in a celestial world. Okay, so now we are here in Abraham chapter 3, and the Lord is teaching Abraham, saying, and Abraham says, and I, Abraham, had the Urim and Thummim. So he's got his own Urim and Thummim, which we are told is a clear or white stone, at least in the celestial world it is. And I, Abraham, had the Urim and Thummim, which the Lord my God had given unto me in Ur of the Chaldees. So when he was in Ur of the Chaldees, where the Chaldeans lived, although they didn't live there for another 1,000 years after Abraham was supposedly alive, we'll just ignore that temporarily. And I saw the stars, that they were very great, and that one of them was nearest unto the throne of God, and there were many great ones which were near unto it. And the Lord said unto me, these are the governing ones. The name of the great one is Kolob, because it is near unto me. For I am the Lord thy God, and I have set this one to govern all those which belong to the same order as that upon which thou standest. Okay, and he goes on to say that Kolob, day on Kolob's 1,000 years on earth. So, Kolob governs all those that are of the same order that the planet Earth happens to be on, is what it says there. Now, we're going to go take a look at the facsimile that was with this Book of Abraham business, and here it is. And so all these things have got their interpretations. There's item number 2. Here's number 1 right in the center, and that's going to say it represents Kolob. Number 2, I believe, is another star planet near Kolob, and so is a 3 is that God riding his Egyptian boat, an Egyptian jet ski. Yeah. And there's number 4. So, we're going to see what they mean here. Joseph Smith has an interpretation for us here. Explanation of what they mean. Figure number 1 in the middle there was Kolob, signifying the first creation nearest to the celestial or residence of God. So, the first thing God created was Kolob, but he lives on something else, a Urim and Thummim, which is not named Kolob, apparently, according to section 130. It's getting a little confusing already. Kolob is first in government, the last pertaining to the measurement of time. The measurement of time, celestial time, there's 1,000 years here. And this earth, by the way, is called by the Egyptians Yahweh. Sounds like what used to precede Jehovah, made up by a Catholic priest. Before they had a J, I think, and a V in English. Stands next to Kolob. This planet or star stands next to Kolob, called by the Egyptians Obelish. That's the name of it. And which is the next grand governing creation near to the celestial, or the place where God resides, holding the key of power, also pertaining to other planets. As revealed from God to Abraham, as he offered sacrifice upon an altar which he built unto the Lord. So the Lord, no matter how great he is, still enjoys watching animals burn. And so he gave Abraham this knowledge about star number 2 in the star cluster that we learned about there in Abraham chapter 3, at the center of maybe the galaxy or something, who knows, the universe. Figure 3 is made to represent God sitting upon his Egyptian jet ski. Sitting upon his throne, it says. It looked more like an Egyptian jet ski to me. Clothed with power and authority, with a crown of eternal light upon his head, representing also the grand keywords of the holy priesthood, as revealed to Adam in the Garden of Eden. Also Seth, Noah, Melchizedek, and Abraham, and everybody else to whom the priesthood was revealed. Okay, there's figure number 3. Does that look like a throne or an Egyptian jet ski? Or a rocking horse? Anyway, that's God. He's on his radical throne there. Number 3. Figure number 3 is made to represent God sitting upon his throne, clothed with eternal power. Excuse me? Okay, yeah, that's what we just looked at. What we want is number 4. Number 4, this one answers to the Hebrew word Rol-ki-yang. It's Hebrew, it's not Chinese. Signifying expanse, or the firmament of the heavens. Also means it's a numerical figure in Egyptian, signifying 1,000. Answering to the measure of the time of Obelish, which is equal with Kolob in its revolution and its measuring of time. Figure 5 is called in Egyptian Enish Goan Dash. This is one of the governing planets also, and is said by the Egyptians to be the sun. Shall we look at it? Number 5. There's number 4. It's like a bird on a jet ski. And where's number 5? Oh, that's right. Number 5 is an upside down ox. Awesome. Okay. Alright, so 5 is representing, according to the Egyptians, the sun, it says. And it's one of the governing planets also. What? How can it be the sun to be one of the governing planets from like the whole universe? Figure 5 is called in Egyptian Enish Goan Dash. This is one of the governing planets also, and is said by the Egyptians to be the sun and to borrow its light from Kolob through the medium of Kivan Rash, which is the grand key, or in other words, the governing power. The governing power was stated to be the light of Christ in section 88, which governs 15 other fixed planets. So this governing power only governs 15 planets, or stars, as also Floesi, or the moon, which was formerly called Olea, the earth and the sun in their annual revolutions. Okay, so it governs between 15 and maybe 18 celestial or whatever bodies here, depending on if the earth, moon, and sun are included in that, and it was called the sun, but it governs the sun. The planet receives its power through the medium of Clephlosis, or Haukukaubium. Okay, are those like different languages for the same meaning or something? Doesn't explain. Now the stars represented by numbers 22 and 23, which we did not really look at, they receive light from the revolutions of Kolob. The stars represented by number 22 and 23 receiving light from the revolutions of Kolob. Revolutions. Somehow the revolutions of Kolob give light to these stars. They're stars. Didn't they have their own light from nuclear fission? That's alright. The other one borrows its light through some strange word from Kolob. Okay, 6 represents this earth in its 4 quarters. 7 represents God sitting on his throne, revealing through the heavens the grand key words of the priesthood, as also the sign of the Holy Ghost unto Abraham in the form of the dove. So God sitting on his throne in number 7, and then I think God was also sitting on his throne in number 3. God sitting on his throne. Okay, let's check out his throne. It's an Egyptian jet ski rocking horse in figure 3. Figure 7 is upside down, and it looks like he's sitting on a box, and I don't think we want to look at that anymore. So, it was not the Egyptian jet ski throne. He had a different throne. Okay, well, so instead of through the light of Christ, some of the governing, one of the governing stars or planets governs 15 to 18 other planets by the grand key out of the billions that there are. But Kolob's supposed to be governing the earth we're on, although this other one was governing the earth and the moon and the sun. A little convoluted, contradictory, possibly, sounding. Okay, so we've been thoroughly, should we say, enlightened, uplifted, confused. Oh, by the way, these words, none of them are real. Yeah, here we have online etymology dictionary, and you can look up, where words come from, and none of those words, except for Olea, was in here, and Olea did not mean moon. It meant olive. Here I had looked up Kemet, for instance. Kemet is what they used to call Egypt in Egypt. That's Egyptian. The word Egypt is not Egyptian, it comes like from Greek to English and French and all that sort of thing. And it didn't exist during the time of Abraham, even though it happens to be in Abraham chapter 1. And in Abraham chapter 1 it says it means forbidden, but it actually means like the place of the departing of the soul for the temple of Ptah. Dealt with that in another video. Anyway, none of the words of these many words that we had here. KV, Nash, Cleo, well, see all these wonderful words. I punched each and every one of them in to the etymology of words. They're supposed to be Hebrew and Egyptian words, but none of them were. None of them were. Olea was found, and it was olive, not moon. Why don't we take a look at Moses chapter 7 here. So what happens here is that he created many earths, many earths. But Enoch learned that this earth was the most wicked above all of God's creations. Wherefore I can stretch forth my hands and hold all my creations which I have made, and all mine eye can pierce them all. And among all the workmanship of mine hands there has not been so great wickedness as among thy brethren. Later learned that God will gather out of all his creations the best of it, and they will come down and live in Zion on the earth. And I shall prepare an holy city, that my people may gird up their loins and be looking for the time of my coming. And my tabernacle shall be called Zion. Then shalt thou and all thy city meet them there, and we will receive them into our bosoms. They shall see us, and they will fall upon our necks, and will kiss each other. And there shall be mine abode, and it shall be Zion, which shall come forth out of all my creations which I have made. And for the space of 1,000 years the earth will rest. Doctrines, Covenants. For we saw him even on the right hand of God, and we heard the voice bearing record that he is the only begotten of the Father. And by him and through him and of him the worlds are and were created. And the inhabitants thereof are begotten sons and daughters unto God. In case you didn't recall, the last verse just said that Jesus, who it was talking about, was the only begotten of the Father. The next verse, all the space aliens are begotten sons and daughters unto God. That by him and through him and of him the worlds are and were created, and the inhabitants thereof are begotten sons and daughters unto God. So, we learn that God has created many, many worlds, and they have sons and daughters that are begotten unto him, according to this, except for it also says that Jesus is his only begotten. We also saw and bear record that an angel of God, who was in authority in the presence of God, rebelled against the only begotten Son, whom the Father loved, who was in the bosom of the Father, was thrust down from the presence of God. And the Son, they called him Perdition, Lucifer, and wept over him, that sort of thing. Anyway, there we have it. God has created many worlds. There are begotten sons and daughters on them. God lives on a giant Urim and Thummim. It is not Kolob. It is near Kolob. It doesn't say what the name of it is. There are many governing ones. It says the light of Christ governs. That Jesus is actually in the sun and the moon and the stars. And then it says that actually some different stars govern 15 planets or so, even though it says that Kolob governs all the ones upon the, like, that this earth is on, and the other one governs this one according to the interpretation on that. So it's rather convoluted. We know that God has an Egyptian jet ski, and it's really cool, and he really likes it. And we saw that, and it was definitely a really cool mobile throne. I thought your mobile phone was cool. Well, a mobile throne is cooler, and a giant Urim and Thummim to live on with your own special Urim and Thummim with no moving parts. It's just a stone, a mini crystal ball that you get when you enter into the celestial kingdom. Well, you learned it right through the scriptures found on LDS.org, located and read to you in a Mormon Truth video on the Dodger Game channel. Your source of truth when it comes to LDS doctrine, history, and Astro-Theology. If you want to make some comments, please do so. Subscribe, get into the channel, and find out more about these amazing